Steve really loves his flu shot. That's what we're doing. There you go. You live longer if you get the flu shot. My only experience is if I ever got it, I always got the flu. If I didn't get it, I never got the flu. I have no idea how that works. The other thing I wanted to say is most of you know that Pastor Rick retired last week, and so we did a lovely little retirement thing for him last week at the shelter, and we'll probably bring a picture of it next week. I have it on my phone, but it was we ended up with this little guitar, and everybody signed this thing. Steve, who loves flu shots, signed this thing, so that was great. But a lot of people didn't get to sign it because you only have so much space on something like that. So sometime today, there's a small canvas coming out here, and we'll start passing that around. And the people downtown that didn't get a shot at the guitar can all sign this little canvas. And so he will put that up on his wall beside the guitar. And he just gets to know that not just people at the shelter, but people downtown love him and still love him. So that would be kind of cool. So we'll figure out how to get that out to you. Our speaker this morning is Franco. He's serving as an executive director of Vibrant Communities Calgary. If you're not familiar with Vibrant Communities, has been given the opportunity to guide Enough for All, which is the Calgary Poverty Reduction Strategy. Previously, he was the president and CEO of the Edmonton YMCA from 2000 to 2012. From 2000 to 2012, 2009 to 2012, he also served as the CEO of Wood Buffalo YMCA. Says he retired, in 2000 and what was it? A while back, 12, but he's back. So there you go. He has a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Windsor and a Master of Divinity from Toronto School of Theology in Toronto. He completed a Master of Management from McGill University and program for voluntary sector leaders. He has been a Rotarian for 22 years, and we're just really pleased to have him come and share with us this morning. So give him a round of applause.
Thank you very, very much, Bill, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here. When I was the CEO of the YMCA in Edmonton, I had quite a bit to do with the mustard seed in the inner city up there, so I have very, very high regard for the tremendous work that you do. And as Bill has already kind of mentioned, this particular, what I'm into right now, it was never planned. So I think there is a divine plan here somewhere, probably, because most of my life has never been planned. I was going to be a priest. That was my plan, and so I went to Toronto. We were the first class at the Toronto School of Theology, and for us Roman Catholic kids, this was a big deal to be studying with those Protestants, because a few years before, even to be beside a Protestant or beside a Protestant church would have meant that we would go to hell. So to be actually sharing, this was, honestly, I know this is all kind of old stuff, but back in 1968, this was a big deal for us. And so I was just absolutely delighted. And what I can say, honestly, because I obviously didn't finish my studies, I didn't get ordained, but I ended up serendipitously working for the YMCA for 1 year at $100 a week, and 43 years later, I retired at the YMCA across the country. And the opportunity that we all have in our sector, the work that you do, is phenomenal. And so I think I just got to start by absolutely acknowledging the work that you do as the mustard seed, and it's very, very powerful. So I just got to bring that. How many here know, what I'd like to do this morning is just do a little, I only have a few minutes, but just a brief update on the Enough for All, but more important, get some of your thoughts going forward for us to advance this. How many here know that there wasn't even enough for all? Because it's some do anyway. So basically, the history, even to Vibrant Communities, goes back to the 1990s. If you've read any of the work of Richard Wilkinson out of the UK, who basically said his correlation that he made is between inequity and vibrancy of all communities and countries. And basically, the Tamarack Institute here in Canada, what they did was they began to convene Canadians back in the 1990s, late 1990s. The Mennonite Central Committee went down to Toronto and participated over 3 or 4 years, and they developed this notion of vibrant communities rather than poverty. You know, it's how do we, in fact, and the fundamental goal is to narrow the gap between rich and poor. Why? Because we all benefit. The country benefits, the community benefits. That was the driver. So in 2005, Vibrant Communities Calgary was formed. And one of the first things that was worked on at that time, and we're a not-for-profit and not a charity, so we can advocate more openly with government and not be so concerned about our charitable status. But we do have a charitable, what is now Momentum was the Mennonite Central Committee. They're our charitable agent or sponsor, so we can use charitable dollars. So through them, the dollars get accounted. And one of the first things that was worked on in those days, early days, was of this vibrancy was transportation. And because of that, today, Calgary, in fact, leads the way on transportation. We have the sliding scale transit pass. It's been 10 years in the making, cumulatively over the years. And I'm sure some of your clients are using that. We know it's a phenomenal, in excess of 10, 15,000 people have accessed it now and using it. That means there's that many people making that little money. So poverty is real in our city, and I don't have to tell you that. You see it every day. So I think that's kind of the approach. So what I'd like to do then is, so the Enough for All strategy. So the strategy was developed because Mayor Nenshi, when he got elected in 2000, made poverty an issue. This is sometimes how things happen. He got elected. Now we got to do something about it. And the result of that was in 2011-12. I wasn't here. I came back to Calgary in 2013. You heard I retired in 2012 in Edmonton. They really, at a community level, a very extensive consultation process that led to after about 18 months to the Enough for All strategy. A very, very comprehensive strategy with a bold aspirational goal, 50% reduction of people living below the low-income cutoff before taxes. The estimate at that time, because that's all they could do is an estimate, because we did not have a precise number for the low-income. It was 114,000 Calgarians, and to reduce that by 50% by 2023. Of course, and so that was, but it's very, very wide and very broad. The question, I think, was what do we do with the strategy now we have it? And because we were around and they looked at a variety of options, since 2015, we have been guiding the implementation. A lot has happened, we all know, in the last 3 years. And so our board and the city and the United Way, who are very friendly, said, let's refresh the strategy. And so that's because we have new governments, just lots of stuff. The downturn in the economy, and it's persistent. So the environment here in our city, I don't have to tell you that, has really, really changed. So hence the refresh. One of the issues we have is, I don't know how we all would define poverty. It's interesting, Derek Cook, who at the time now is, of course, the executive director of this is the definition out of the new national strategy that was just released in mid-October. This particular definition. The definition in the current Enough for All came out of Quebec back in 2012. I mean, so we've struggled with definition. But what Derek talks about is it's a broken relationship. It's all about relationships. I broke my relationship with my God, with my fellow man, and the result of that is end up in poverty. So it really becomes about correcting the relationship. So you can define it in many ways, but ultimately it's about giving people, every Calgarian or every Canadian, the choice, the power, and the resources to participate actively in our community. I mean, it's really is, at the end of the day, what can we do from a systems level to do that? The challenge we have, I mean, I've worked in the sector all my life, is that if you had asked me 10 years ago, I still would have said, if we can just help all the individual poor people, things will get better. What we really are now coming to realize is that you got to do that, but you also then have to look systemically. What are some of the underlying causes that in fact are putting people in poverty and keeping them there? So that's kind of the challenge. It's this, we still got to do what we're doing, but at the same time, we have to really look at more of a systems question. So next slide. So the refresh, we're looking only at the mission, vision of the strategy and the values and principles. So next slide, just quickly keep going down. Okay, so and what we're really doing in this refresh is we're asking people that have been involved. There's been about, we have about several hundred people involved, that have been involved, so they're being consulted. Because of the work you do, we're here this morning to kind of let you know a little bit about this and get your feedback today and after today as well as we go forward. The work that you do is part of the strategy, whether you kind of realize it or not, and that's why I'm kind of here to do that. So we're really talking about involving and collaborating. Next slide, there, Leo. And it really ultimately, it's about engaging. We've learned a lot over the last 3.5 years. So the question becomes, what are we going to do differently going forward? Next slide. So the vision we've got is really trying to, the advice we've gotten so far is that the original mission was to focus on the individual. And it's saying you can still continue to focus on the individual, but you got to look more systemically. So we're going to say, what are the underlying causes? How do we come at the underlying causes? Ask why more often as we're helping people. Why is this individual in this particular situation? Why is this family? And it's really forcing us to maybe look deeper and look at policies. And a good example of this would be Alberta did not have an Alberta Child Benefit until 2015 with the new government. Many provinces did and do. That has done a lot for families. If you have young children and you're below $41,000, it's potentially 3 children, it's an additional $4,000 in new cash, tax-free. This is phenomenal for people that are living on the margins, that bottom quintile. So there are things that have happened already, and that's what I mean by systems and policies. What are the things we can now do? One of the things that's evolved in the last 3 years is a basic income, which is really to say that every Canadian, or Albertan or Calgarian, would be guaranteed through the tax system, not through AISH, not through Alberta Works, a certain amount of cash and money, income, that is theirs to use to live as citizens of the country and the province. Now, we got a long ways to go on that one. I mean, we were following the pilot in Ontario very, very closely, and we know that the new government there has killed it in its second year. So that you can see what we're looking at is a systems kind of question. Next slide. The mission, therefore, then, to what extent? I mean, we really do want to talk about ending poverty, and people say, well, you can't. It's impossible to end poverty, and I probably would have said the same thing 10 years ago. It won't be in my lifetime, but I put this in the same realm as slavery. 500-600 years ago, in the Western world, where then we cannot live without slavery. We have made it. There still is a little bit, but we have made it almost. The question would be, cannot we move poverty the same way? At the systems level, saying it is not just, it is not right. Yes, we will help people in poverty, but look at all of our systems and really work to end it. Now, like I say, it'll probably be somewhere in the future, but if we work at it today, I think there's a chance we'll end it. And so that's kind of it's a challenge for all of us, but to say, can we work at it? So it's to end poverty. Next slide. So this is kind of a framework going forward. So there are 4 goals in the strategy right now. Goal 1 is fundamentally that all Calgarians have sufficient income and assets to thrive. It's all about how do we help people that are in the bottom quintile of our community have more money in their pockets. Hence, the Alberta Child Benefit, but lots of other things. We're pushing, for a living wage, for example, which we've just got the new calculations here the first week to hear it. The calculation for a living wage in our city is $17.17 an hour. If you're basically earning less than that, you cannot meet your basic needs. You'll have to have a second job. There's a calculation that we use nationally, $17.70. Minimum wage is going up to $15. Lots of pushback on the $15. But that's not, people that are earning that will be earning $15 will have to get either a second job, go to their family, or go to social services, food banks, and the rest of it to make ends meet. So the question would be is, in fact, how do we, in fact, move people and help to? So that's what that number 1 goal, or it's not, and these are not in priority. That's kind of a central one. Another goal is around the Indigenous communities here in Calgary, is that we know that they are so overrepresented as a percentage of the population. 6% or so, 5 to 6% is the population of Calgary, but they, are some words, the DI, 30% of those are Indigenous. 60% of the families in the homeless shelter are Indigenous. Way overrepresented. We know that there's some other groups, single women with children, and disabled, and seniors, and newcomers are also way overrepresented relative to their bottom quintile. So the question there becomes, in that one, what can we in fact do to meaningfully, and the problem we have in this one, it's hugely challenging, we know this. How do we deal with racism? How do we deal with colonialism? This is not simple, because it's all of us. We don't even know, sometimes, starting with myself, our own hidden biases. So that's kind of and then the third goal is that everyone in Calgary can easily access all the services they need when they need them. And what you see, like employment, housing, financial empowerment, what in the literature, and because lots of work is being done on poverty reduction, these are seen as the change levers to really reduce poverty in communities. So if you look at that, for example, financial empowerment, we've already kind of talked about. Housing. We know the Mustard Seed do a lot of work on housing, for example. So the question I think would be here is, how do we in fact over time ensure that every Calgarian has appropriate housing for them? That doesn't mean everybody in an apartment, appropriate to their situation. That's the challenge. And we have a long ways to go there. We've come a long ways. We have a long ways to go. And so on like that. So you can see that. And then the final one is really, those are the principles by which we would work going forward. This is totally new under that goal, which is principles. So about, will we work together as a community on the calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Report, for example, the 94 calls to action, and so on like that. So I think racism, physical and mental a trauma-centered approach, all of these things become principles by, we hope, over time, that all organizations, all agencies, and us as individuals will work towards. So there's a lot of aspirational elements to the strategy. The question I think we have, for us, is you hear this, and I kind of would welcome your comments, like, does this resonate at all for you? As people, some of you in the front line, some of you on the board, someone, to say, can we in fact make a dent or in this, like over the next few years, working together? No one, well, we know for sure, no one organization, no one order of government, no one, or like, it's going to be, we have to do it as a community. And so the question is, it's going to demand of all of us some ways of doing it differently, how we're questioning and maybe reaching out and working with others, respecting our own legacies for sure. But can we find the common ground to move this needle? Because let me tell you, I share this. We have a small group at our place called Poverty Talks. And these folks are in and out of homelessness. They struggle, just not different than some of your clients, I'm sure. And I remember I spent 43 years in this kind of work before I started this. And I was at the University of Calgary School of Social Work. And two of these folks had been part of a participative action research program. They interviewed 9 people. Anyway, little report presenting it. In the conversation, one of them said to me, "You people have made a business out of our misery." I said, "Oh yeah?" You're like, heck, that's not the case at all. Well, in the last 3 years, as I've gotten to talk, there's a lot of truth to it. I was CEO in several communities of the YMCA. I wish I could say that every decision I made and everything I gave leadership to always put the client first, because that's what they're really saying. The way I've taken her comments, every time that I really put the needs of my organization, the needs of my staff, the needs ahead of the client, now you're operating as a business, and you really are, as far as I'm concerned, that's my definition. So I'm challenging myself more and more to say, are we really going to be really client-centered? Really client-centered? And really work appropriately for that? What does that mean at the board level? What does it mean at the front line level? What does it mean for managers over time, develop that kind of culture? And what does it mean between organizations? So this is very challenging. I know, because I did it. And so I'm just being very, very honest with you. So I think what I like to do here is questions, comments, anything at all. And this is just the beginning, right? Because we're refreshing, and Steve has been at a meeting, and I really, really appreciate that. So as you hear this stuff, what comes to mind? Is it frustrating you? Does it resonate? Any comments are welcome. So it's we've got about 10 minutes. Yes, please. Yeah. Mm. Right. Right. Sure. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm. Right. It is. Totally. I mean, it's a really good comment. The thing would be, what I would try to come at it is to say, what can you do differently? It's even a small thing. If you take some of these principles, say, what could I do differently? It could be just as much as, I'm going to read more, I'm going to learn more about this. For me, on the Indigenous file, for example, because I didn't know a heck of a lot. I mean, what do I do? What do I know as a non-Indigenous person? I don't even know my hidden biases. I've been watching Hollywood movies since we came to Canada, cowboys and Indians and all that. Well, that shapes your values. It shapes how you see people. So the last 3 years has been a huge journey about learning my own hidden biases relative to the Indigenous people. That maybe I may be racist and I don't even realize it. I may be using colonial values, just that particular group. So I think there's levels to this. It's personally at the personal level. You don't need permission. We can all do something, and then you can kind of move it up, at the manager level, and ultimately to say, if we become truly client-centered every time, that's the goal. What does that look like? What does that really look like? It's challenging, but it's because I could tell you when I reflect back, with the benefit of hindsight, for me, lots of times I didn't. Steve? Yeah. Yes. Well, I think there's lots of room to do that. It would be interesting, for example, if you were to take, in that goal 3, to say which area or areas you are really good at, good at. It's close to your heart. It's what the mustard seed is, and then saying, and for us as a backbone, we'd work with you to say these other organizations working the same way, and then unfortunately there's no easy path. It takes time for people to come together and to kind of talk and share. And for me, I'm a faith person. I mean, you've heard that, kind of stuff. I can work with somebody that doesn't share my faith, and we can still advance the thing. At the point that the faith becomes the reason that we can't work together, I'm not sure that's faith anymore. Because I don't think as a Christian, I'm just being totally, that's who I am. It hasn't stopped me to say, it doesn't matter. It does matter to me what my faith is. and what motivates me. But it doesn't have to be the reason that I can't work with someone else. So I think on all of these fronts, we got to pick two or three and saying, because you've got tremendous resource, you know, all the stuff that the faith brings. So I think, and there are other faith groups doing this as well. And there is now more of an effort being made with the Calgary Alliance for Common Good to, in fact, bring more churches into this work as well. Figuring out how is challenging. I don't know if I've answered, but really, what I would do is just really, I think of housing, for example, for sure, for you. I mean, because I just know, you know, the work that you're doing on the housing side, on the whole spectrum of housing. But there may be other areas in there that's kind of bigger part of your mission, and figuring out, and we'd be happy to work with them. Yeah. No, please. No. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. Oh, of course. There is only, for me, there's only one. We've got to sit down, honestly, and it's not one conversation, multiple conversations. I mean, I was at a session yesterday morning, a little bit tied to this, but not completely, on climate change. To say the least. And there's a whole movement afoot in this province to have more and more conversation on climate change, to find the common ground between the environmentalists and the pipeline guys and girls. I mean, just find out where the common ground is, because right now it's not working. I mean, it's crazy what we've got. So it's the same issue here. And we just got to make the time. The problem we have is it becomes a nice to, whether it's at the board level or whether it's at the staff level. We got too much on our staff meeting minutes, blah, blah, blah. And I've been there, done that, and continue to do it in some degree. But we got to challenge ourselves. Because I'm telling you, the people, and you know this, think of the people that you're serving at Mustard Seed right now. You can see their faces, you can see their struggles. In how we're doing it, are we doing it the very best way? Say for me personally, in my work now and in the past, I can always do it differently and better. As soon as I say we are the best, our way is the only way, we're in trouble. We really are. You know, we can say this is the best we know up to this point. Could we learn from someone? Like, it's that kind of attitude. To do that, though, how do we build trust? Well, the only way we do it is to really work together. I must say, through these discussions we've been having the last 2 or 3 months, so I just got to say, I see there's an old guy with gray hair, fairly optimistic. 4 or 5 years ago, 2 major organizations in this town on housing had boxing gloves on. And yet we're supposed to serve the vulnerable, blah, blah, blah. But organizationally, we were doing this. 5 years later, we're now sitting in a room, no boxing gloves. It happened because board members got together and saying, this is crazy. You know, this is crazy. What are we doing? And so now, like, is it solved? Not completely. Is there a better chance that we will solve it? Yes. Because at least we're talking, we're sharing. Do we see it totally eye to eye? No. But is it better than it was 4 or 5 years ago? Absolutely. How did that take place? Multiple times getting together at all levels. Tough though. We got to make time. So Steve, I don't know. I really wish I had some silver bullets, but I don't have a single one. But it really is about. This becomes a choice for all of us, because here's the reality. In the last 3 years in our city, and you know, I'm sure some have come here, had very successful lives. All of a sudden, lost a very good paying job. They lost their house, and on and on and on. And I always say it could be any one of us next week. We're not that far from what we're talking about here. We're not. And sometimes we think we're invincible. We are not. I am not. Let me put it that way. So I personalize it. So sometimes, to me, it's almost like an insurance plan. Like get involved because you never know when your time may come. Hopefully not. It might. So I think. Any other comments? So it's my time, so I better respect your time. Thank you. Honestly, there is a website, www.enoughforall.ca. I encourage you to go on there. It just so happens this afternoon at Mount Royal University at 3:30 we have a community conversation. If you know anybody that would like to come, just come. It's just off the parking lot there. You can go on the website and just the kind of thing. But I really encourage you to stay involved with this. This is Calgary's power reduction strategy. It's not VCC's. In fact, I hope VCC won't be needed anymore. And we're out of the picture because we're already well on our way to achieving it. So I think that would be that. But I just know the great work that you do, and I started by thanking you for what you do, and I thank you again, you and all of your colleagues, volunteers, staff, board. Thank you so much for what you do. This particular prayer that I'd like to end with, what we share as a faith community. Francis, a young guy back in 700-800 years ago, gave it all up. But this prayer is attributed to him, and it feeds my soul, at least, and hopefully it'll feed yours. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love, and where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith, and where there is despair, hope. Where there is sadness, light, and where there is darkness, light, and where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal light. Thank you very, very much, folks. Appreciate being here.